When you work with a Word document and you add in a page number, did you realize that you were opening the door for footers and headers and all of the different possibilities that those two elements add to your document? Well, you did. And so today we're going to look at tips and tricks and some of the things that you'll want to watch for when you work with Word and headers and footers. Hi, I'm Terry, one of the Consumer Technology Specialists for Mid-Continent Public Library. And let's look at our document and get started with headers and footers. Our example document today is a very important manuscript, and this could be just a really long report. It could be a family history. It could be that you are writing your autobiography. Whatever it is, it's a very important manuscript. And as I look at this, I can see that the title here already has some sort of a style on it. Let me scroll down and see if we can figure that out. Yes, it says that in this styles group, the title is using the title style. And then we have an introduction, and the introduction also has some sort of a style on it. So let's see if we can find that. Yes, it is heading 1. And then for our example, we've just put in sort of placeholder text. And then below that, we can see that we are at least anticipating Chapter 1, Chapter 2. As I scroll down even more, then we also have a Chapter 3, again with varying amounts of text. And so this is probably a fairly good representation of what your document might look like, where you need to use heading styles to separate the different sections of your document. And then we're going to take that idea and add to it so that we can help the reader understand the different sections of your document and make it so much more helpful to the person who is reading what you have written. To start off, I think I would like to add in some page numbers to my document here. And to do that, I need to go up above the ribbon to Insert, which is the second tab here. And when I click on that, I find that I need to go to the right to find the header and footer group. Now, when I find this header footer group, I can see that I have buttons for header, for footer, or for page number. The interesting part of this is, if I select header, for example, I'm still going to have the option to see footers in my document. If I select footer, I'm going to have the option to see headers as well. And if I just come down to page number, well, that turns on the headers and footers too. Any of these 3 buttons in the header and footer group will work together to turn on both headers and footers and allow you to add a page number. For our first choice here, we're just going to go with page number and click that drop down arrow. And now you can see that I have all sorts of places that I could put my page number. And as I hover my mouse on top of page and I bring it over, I could put it in the upper left with plain number 1, or in the middle of that top part of my page for plain number 2, or I could put it in the upper right of my page with plain number 3. And then I even have some other choices. I can get a little fancier here with the formatting. Here is, for example, an accent bar, so it has the page number and then a vertical bar and then the word page. And we have accent bar 1 and accent bar 2 scrolling down. One that you see quite often is this page X of Y. So basically it's page 1 of 1 for our example. And again, we have a placement choice of in the upper left, in the sort of upper central part of the page, or the upper right. Scrolling down even more then, we can put our page numbers in brackets in different ways, or we can put in dots above and around the number, or with large italics, or we can even put in Roman numerals, and we can put in tildes and vertical lines. I'm not going to scroll through all of these choices, but you can see that there are just a lot of ideas for you to choose from, and it may depend on the type of document you have as to the type of page numbering that you will select. Well, I kind of like my page numbers at the bottom, so I will probably choose bottom of page. But notice that you could also put these page numbers in the page margins, and so they are certainly at the far left or the far right, or again, this is another far left, but in the margin at the bottom, or the far right. And then current position is just simply, where have I clicked? Let's put a number there. Well, we'll go with bottom of page, and I'm going to select this plain number 3. And as soon as I select plain number 3, you can see that it opens the footer, because it says so on the left here, and here is my page number in the lower right, which is what I selected. You can also see that right below, we can see the top of that second page, and that we're also seeing the header for that page. So the header, footer, page number all kind of work together. The other thing that is really helpful, but sometimes a little confusing, is that when we add in the header and the footer or a page number, when you go up above the ribbon and to the right, we have a header and footer contextual tab. And it even has, for all intents and purposes, its own view. So let's look at this ribbon in some detail. Starting at the left, we have a header and footer group that's exactly the same as the buttons that we saw when we first went to insert, and then we found the header and footer group. It's just that you can't get to the insert tab very easily from here, so they've added those buttons in again on this tab so you have easy access if you want to make some changes. We have an insert group, and this is kind of nice. It lets you add in, say, a date and time to the header or footer, and you have all sorts of ways that you can do that. You have document info, so let me click on that. So you could add in the author, the file name, or the file path. The file path could be really long, so I'd be a little careful about adding that, or the document title, for example. Quick parts, if you use them, involve things like your auto text, and in this case, it shows basically who owns Word that is on my computer, which is Mid-Continent Public Library, and then below that, it has the author of this document, and then the initials of the author. We have all sorts of document properties, and some of these are really kind of the same as the document info button. It's just that there's even more here. So you have things like, well, again, the author, or comments have been put in, keywords, for example, status, subject. Those are things that you could add to your header or footer. To the right of that, we have pictures. And the pictures would be things that we have on our computer, that we have perhaps taken the picture or we've downloaded it from someplace, and then we could search to find that picture. That would be very helpful if you're working for a company that has a logo and that logo is supposed to be in the header or footer. The online pictures are a gallery of pictures that Microsoft has, but it's also a way to search for pictures using Bing and Creative Commons. The one caution here is if you use insert to insert something into your footer, you can inadvertently overwrite what you've done by using this header-footer group. The header-footer group absolutely will overwrite anything that you've put in with insert. So be careful and make sure that you're kind of paying attention to what you're doing when you use header and footer and the insert groups. Navigation helps you move from one place in the document to another place. It says go to header, and that takes me up to the top of my document. And notice how the go to header is grayed out, and now I have the option to go to the footer of that same page. Here I go again, go to header. And you would think that maybe it would go down to page 2, but click on go to header and it's taking me back to page 1. So I'm just going back and forth between the top and the bottom of that page. We could also, if we have several headers and footers, have the option to, let's say I'm in the header now, I could go to the previous header if there is one, or I could go to the next header if there's actually text on that next page. So I can move from headers all the way through my document by using next and previous, or I can go through all of the footers using next and previous as well. To the right of that, we have an options group, and I have a checked option that says show document text. And I kind of like seeing the text, but if I click on that checkbox and turn it off, now I don't see the text. I suppose if the text is way close to your margins and it feels confusing for you to add in a header or footer because of the text, then you could turn it off. I kind of like to know where things are on the page though, so I'm going to turn it back on. But notice we have some other choices here that might be exactly what you need. For example, different odd and even pages. So we could set up a different, say, header for odd pages and another one for even pages. Different first page generally means that for formal documents, the first page generally doesn't display a page number. When we say different first page, what we're really saying is we're just not going to put a page number there. We're going to start with page 2 on page 2. To the right of that, we can say that the header from the top right now is a 1/2 inch, and you can kind of see with my insertion point where it is, but I can, using the arrows or just typing in numbers, see how it moves? And so I can make my header wider if I need to do that. I'm going to go back to 0.5. And the footer from the bottom. So let's go to the footer. And again, the page number is about a 1/2 inch from the bottom, but I could make that farther away from the edge of the page, or I can make it closer to the edge of the page, simply by using these settings here. And let me cancel that. And then on the far right of this ribbon tab is the most important button, which is close header and footer. It used to be that you could just click in the document, and actually I've double clicked in the document and I've turned off the header footer. Notice also that if I come to about where the header or footer should be and double click, it turns them back on and I'm back at this header footer setting. But if that's just kind of hard to remember, then you always have this close header footer button at the far right where you can click on it, and now you're back to your document. And what is in the footer can't be edited this way, but you can see what is in the header and footer. Even though I originally thought that I would like to have my page number in the lower right of the page, I've decided that maybe I would like to change things up a bit, maybe add more information to this footer. And certainly we have a lot of options, as we saw in that contextual tab. So let me come down to the footer and just double click to turn it on. And as soon as I do, at the top, my ribbon has changed and I can see that I'm in the header and footer contextual tab. And we know that we can do some adding of elements. And what we can do is come over to footer, and when I look at this, the blank 3 columns used to be the default for all Word headers and footers, and so we can go back to sort of the old-fashioned way and see how that looks. Now when I click on it, look at that, it automatically wiped out the page number setting that I had originally added in. Now it has kept, though, my footer from bottom at 0.2 inches, so I think I'm going to put it back up, or 0.5. You'll see that we have type here, type here, type here as our possibilities. So I think I'm going to select the first type here, and I want to go to date and time and just add in a date and time. So I'm going to click on date and time, and I have all of these different ways of putting in a date or time or both, but I think I'll just take this top choice and click on OK. Now where it says type here in the middle, let's do some looking for a picture. And let's go to online pictures. Let's say that our document really is something about our family tree. Let's see if we can find a really good family tree. There's certainly a lot of them, but I'm afraid some of them may be too large for a footer. I think I'll just go with this one. It seems fairly simple. And then at the bottom right, I can click Insert. And it's going to be way big. So I just click and drag and resize it. And sometimes the pictures flip on me, so I will grab that little partial circle so that I can get it back to where I need it to be. All right, now it almost looks like I've lost my header and footer view, but not really. I don't have all of the different ribbon button groups, but if I go to header and footer on the far right, there they are. And again, then maybe I'll change this footer from bottom down a little bit so I can move that tree down. We removed the page number, but what if I want to add the page number back in? All I need to do is select that type here, and I'm going to go to the left to the header and footer group, but I'm going to be careful in what I do. When I click page number, instead of saying top, bottom, page margins, I'm going to go with current position and click on that. And then what do I want? You know, I think I would like to have not the accent bar, and I don't think I want page abbreviated, but I think I'd like to do this page 1 of 1. By using the footer options, we've now been able to change the date by using insert. We've added in a picture by also using insert, and then we were very careful, but we added in a page number by going back to header and footer and selecting the current location for the page number. I've now come back up to the top of my document, and I have added in some section breaks that we are going to look at next. So first of all, let me go to Home, and as I go to the Show Hide button that's in the paragraph group, we will be able to see some of those breaks. So we have the introduction, and at the end of the introduction, you can see that we've added in a section break, next page. To do that, I went to Layout, Breaks, and then Next Page. Well, I did the same steps over and over. So as I scroll down, you can see that we have Chapter 1 on another page, and at the end of Chapter 1, we have a section break, next page. And as I scroll down some more, we will see Chapter 2, And at the end of chapter 2, I've added in another next page section break, which takes us to the end of our document, and a new page for chapter 3. I have moved to the top of my document, and I've double-clicked to open up the header section 1. And when I do that, I see that it is blank. And it only kind of makes sense that it would be blank. For our example today, I'm going to click up here and I'm going to type introduction, because it could be even the introduction would have more than one page. And so I want to be sure that every page that is part of the introduction has introduction in the header. Well, that works really well until I scroll down to the second page. I have a problem because this is, first of all, section 2. It's chapter 1. It is not introduction. How do I stop introduction from copying down to the page or pages that are all about chapter 1? My hint is right here on the right-hand side where it says that this header's contents are the same as previous. What I want to do is break that link. What I can do is make sure that I have clicked in my header and then go to that header and footer contextual tab, and in the middle where we have navigation, I can see that link to previous has kind of a gray background, meaning that it's turned on. What I'm going to do is click on that to turn it off. And as I did that, I lost that same as previous notation on the right. I can come in and remove introduction, type chapter 1 instead. That works really well, chapter 1. I no longer have introduction. And if I go back up to the top, nope, introduction still says introduction. Page 2 has chapter 1. Now let me come down here, because when I get to the next page, guess what? We have the same issue. The actual page's contents say chapter 2, but I have carried over chapter 1 from the previous section. And I know that because on the right-hand side it says, yet again, same as previous. All I need to do is be sure to click in the header so that I can see link to previous is turned on. All I need to do is click on it to turn it off, and now I can fix chapter 1, make it chapter 2, and that same as previous has turned off. Well, I'll bet you can figure out what's going on with the next page then. As I scroll down, yes, the actual contents on the page are chapter 3, but because we have same as previous, this header is still saying chapter 2. So I can click in the header and click on link to previous to turn that off. I can make that chapter 3, and I'm going to close my header and footer, and I can see then from the very beginning that I have a header for chapter 1, and chapter 1 could go on for 10 pages, and it will repeat chapter 1 until we get to chapter 2 where we broke that link, and chapter 2 will go on for many pages, and then at chapter 3 we will repeat that as well. Now, if you don't like that, say chapter 1 and chapter 2, chapter 3 are on the left-hand side, no big deal. We'll just double click, and then we can go to the home page even, and we can realign that so that it's, say, right aligned. Now we'll need to do each one separately, but that's easy enough to do. Go into chapter 2, right align. Go down to chapter 3 and right align. And then we can actually go to our header footer and close the header and footer, And our document is looking pretty darn slick. I have added 2 more things to our document. First of all, you can see that I've now added a table of contents, and it has picked up the correct page numbers for everything, so that's great. However, the header says introduction. Ooh, that's not good. And then as I come down, I see that my table of contents says page 1 of 6. Well, generally a table of contents uses a different number format. It uses Romanet. And so page 1 of 6 is really not correct. Page 1 of 6 should be what we see on this page where we have our introduction. So we need to fix the footer just a little bit here, and we can already see where it says page 2 of 6, same as previous, so we know that's what we need to fix. Now there's something else here. I've added, as we scroll through here, a blank page that is also chapter 1. So let's start at the top and think our way through this. First of all, table of contents. Let's look at introduction, not here, because we know that always we have this same as previous thing going on. So let's go down to here where it says introduction, where we actually have the introduction, and sure enough, over on the right it says same as previous. So we want to go up to header and footer and take off that link to previous. Then we can go up to our table of contents and actually just make that header blank. Now let's scroll down our page here, and as we do, we can see that while the table of contents is looking good, we no longer have that header, we still have page 1 of 6, and the table of contents should have its own numbering format. This is a sort of complicated kind of formatting, and so I'm just going to select 1 of 6, and then I'm going to come up to the upper left with header and footer, and then I'm going to click the drop down here, and with current I'm just going to go with simple plain number, and it's picked up the 1, but I still need to take out page. That is a leftover from that previous formatting. The problem now is I have an Arabic 1, and I'd like for my table of contents to be a Romanet 1. So I can either select it and do a right click, or I can come back up to page number, click the drop down, and go to format page numbers, where at the top number format can be changed to Romanet. Now the other possibility here is that we need to check this page numbering section, and sure enough it says continue from previous section. Well, this is the first page in the document, so we definitely want to say nope, we want to start at 1 and click OK. So we have a page 1 Romanet for the table of contents, and then from here we have my very important manuscript, and it says, darn it, page 2. So let's double click to open that footer if we haven't already, and it's just wrong, isn't it? So what we need to do is go back up to page number and format the page numbers. We don't want it to continue from the previous section. We want it to start at 1, and we'll click OK. Now we're going to double check. So starting at the beginning, as I look at the bottom of the table of contents page, I can see that it is still that Romanet, and then as I come down, I have page 1 of 6, and scrolling down even more, I have page 2 of 6, and page 3 of 6. And as I scroll down, page 4 of 6. Now that looks really good, but the more I think about it, the more I realize that when we included the table of contents, we only had 6 pages. So after this page 4 of 6, I'm now at my last page and it says 5 of 6. This may not be a very good format to use because it's really not accurate. Let's go back up to where it says page 1 of 6, and I'll try to move slowly here. Because what I think I need to do is just use a totally different format. I'm going to select this 1 of 6 and go back up to header and footer and page number, and I certainly want to go with the current position, and I'm just going to go with plain number. So now I have page 1, which is accurate, and page 2, and as we go down, page 3, and page 4, and at the end here, page 5. That is accurate, and I have a really nice looking document. As a matter of fact, let me go to View and Multiple Pages. For our review, we can really see that now we have a document that looks professional, that people will want to read. The page numbering is accurate. The chapter headings look really good. To learn even more, be sure to go to mymcpl.org/online learning for such great resources as Universal Class, LinkedIn Learning, Learning Express Library, and Udemy Business. We also premiere 2 new videos every Wednesday and Friday at 1 o'clock. If you miss a video premiere, you'll still be able to find it later when it's convenient for you. You can find us on Facebook at MCPL 360, and you can find us on YouTube by going to our MCPL MO channel. From there, be sure to look for our MCPL Consumer Technology Resources playlist, which contains all of our tech videos.